Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is No Life, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my top books of 2024 video. I am so excited for this. I sometimes find it hard to narrow down like my top 15, top 10 books. So I think I have about 15 in front of me, just about 15. Every single year it's actually gotten easier and easier to kind of like narrow down what my favorite books are, because I think I really hone in on like what I personally love in books, any genre, any subgenre, all of that. And all of these books that I've read either kind of blew me out of the water, I connected with the characters on like a more like relatable level, or I connected with the story or anything like that. So a lot of my top books that I'm going to talk about in this video you may have seen already in my top romances of the year and or my top fantasy books of the year, but I do have some ones that I kind of like saved to talk about in this video. I'm very excited. These are in no particular order. I don't think I could rank them. It's hard to rank them, but in my reading journal I do have like a battle of the books from like each month, like my favorite from each month, and there is one that took the top and I'm gonna talk about that last. So you probably have already guessed it. You probably already guessed it if you watch my channel and you watch my videos. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into my top books of 2024. So the first two books I have to talk about are two books that I read at the beginning of 2024 that I absolutely loved. Like, I just devoured these books, okay? One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns. This is the Shepherd King duet. This sparked my love for what is called gothic books. Gothic fantasies, gothic romances, whatever the case may be. I love these because of that. The atmosphere in this book was just something that blew me away. I love the characters. I love the development. They had a full circle moment in the last book where I was like, wow, did not see that one coming. So now I'm a huge fan of Rachel Gillig. I cannot wait to see what she comes out with in 2025. I do know she has The Night and the Moth that's coming out, so I want to read some of her backlist as well as that new release. The magic system to me was also really unique. Something that I hadn't seen before, where our characters, they have these providence cards that you touch and that's how you get magic. If you're the holder of those cards, you get that magic and stuff like that, and you get those powers. And obviously certain cards are more scarce, some are more plentiful throughout the kingdom and stuff like that. And I just loved this. I love the kind of like webs that she weaved with some of the characters in the storylines and stuff like that, and I just thought it was super interesting. I love these books so much. I definitely want to listen to the audiobooks again, but the hold on my library is like 12 weeks long because a lot of people have been talking about these in 2024, but these might be a reread in 2025 just because I love them so much. Yeah, if you haven't read this duet, definitely pick it up. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. It's just a favorite to me because I love the gothic setting of everything. The creepiness, the slight horror vibes, the fantasy, the romance subplot in this. It was just so good and I loved it so much. Another one that is like a dark academia kind of gothic, not really gothic, more dark academia, which is slightly like less horror-y than gothic books, and that is Serpentine Valentine. So this one I read so early in 2024. I read I think at the end of January, beginning of February, but this book is something that I think about where the two characters really, like, I got something and I related to something in both of our female characters. So this is a sapphic dark academia romance. It is on the dark side. I am a Gianna Darling stan, okay? I love everything that she writes. Everything that she writes is so lyrical, so beautiful, so just like, she puts so much of herself into these books and it really just shows because I connect with them emotionally. Basically, one of our female characters, you see that she was sexually assaulted at the school and she wants to get back at the headmaster, I guess you can say. So she goes after the headmaster's daughter and she finds out that maybe the headmaster's daughter is like, I actually like this woman rather than I want to take her down. So it's a very interesting turn of events. I loved it. I love the heaviness of this book. It has a lot of emotions. It will bring a lot of emotions out of you, but it's so beautiful. Like, feminine rage in a book is one of these characters. Like, she is the embodiment of feminine rage and how she deals with that throughout the book, and how, not that she gets over it, because I don't think anyone ever gets over it, but I think it's one of those things where it's just so relatable, especially as a woman. Like, I related to it and I thought it was beautifully written, and Gianna is an amazing writer and I love her so much. Another book I have is a historical romance, and that is The Notorious Lord Knightley by Lorraine Heath. Lorraine Heath has two books in this stack that's my favorites of the year. I want to rediscover my my love of historical romance again because I love historical fiction so much, and most of the time my historical fiction books that I love is either has a decent like romance subplot that I connect to, and or it's just really impactful. And I know Lorraine Heath, she's my favorite historical romance author in general. And this book is a second chance woman scorned. She comes back to the Ton, to London, and she's back in society, and she started writing these books, but people don't know that she's writing these books, but they're like scandalous books about like a past relationship. And the only person who figures that out is the person that she had that past relationship with. It was so good. I love the angst in here. Like, it is such an angsty book. The yearning, the pining, all of it was so good. I still vividly remember this book. It's one of my favorite historical romances. So if you want to get into historical romances, or if you just want to check out anything, check out Lorraine Heath. She does have a new book out. I think it's coming out, or it's already out, but I cannot wait to pick it up and read it. Another book I have is one that I'm going to briefly touch on. I can't really talk about the synopsis too much because it's a major spoiler, and that's because it is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. So I read House of Sky and Breath. I reread the second book before reading book 3, and I really enjoyed this. I loved what she did. I will talk about it nonstop. I'm someone who, I love what she did with the book. I love the twists and turns. I love the surprises, and not to give anything away, but I loved what she did with it. I think that she's an amazing writer, and I think that she did a lot of stuff with this book that I really enjoyed. I also reread ACOTAR at the end of 2024, and I really loved it. I loved those series. I loved it, but I think her writing in this book, in this series, you could tell she's grown as a writer even from the ACOTAR series. Like, A Court of Silver Flames is like the book before, I think, House of Sky and Breath, and you could tell like that's on par with her writing as like in this book. And I just think every book that she releases, she gets better and better in her storytelling, in her character development, in weaving webs and like dropping little things for us to see, and I love it. So she's just one of my favorite authors, and this is one of my favorite books of the year. So yeah, I love her writing. I'm a fan, I'm a stan, and I really enjoyed this. I actually love what she did with this. The next one I want to talk about is Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. So Forget Me Not was one of my top books of 2023 by Julie Soto, and I thought nothing could top that, okay? With this book, I love it. It is so romantic. I listened to the audiobook within like 2 days. I was just obsessed with these characters. Now, they're both musicians. They both play string instruments, and they're in the same like orchestra in New York City, like playing every week. And you see that he is like a very famous string artist. Like, he performs in a band separately, and he'll come to the orchestra. And when he sees her, he's like, I don't like her because she's a rival to me. Like, he is so good at what he does, and he's like, I love the way she does things, but I hate that I love it, if that makes sense. Like, he has this like love-hate relationship with her, literally, because he thinks that she's like a rival. Like, she probably could be better than him, and that like really irks him. But he's like, I'm like so intrigued with her like mind, body, and soul. And there's just a part in here where I was like, this is so romantic. I loved it so much. Like, I was just wholly obsessed with them. There was not a part of this book that I did not love. I just was obsessed, and I loved the whole read. And if you can listen to the audiobook, definitely pick it up. But this is just one of those like romance books that is like, this is why I read romance books, because it's like so angsty, the pining, how obsessed he is with her. Like, it was just such a romantic book, and I loved it so much. The next book I want to talk about is one that actually blew me away, and it is Metal Slinger by Rachel Snyder. This was actually second place, like my top books of the year. When I did my battle of the books, this was the second one. Like, it was between this one and the one that I'm going to talk about, that one. I don't know what it was about this book. I mean, I do know exactly what it was. It was the writing. It was being dropped into this fantasy world. It was not knowing anything. It was going along for the ride. It was the ending of this book, and the freaking cliffhanger of this book really just solidified how I was like, this author can write her ass off. Like, this literally blew me away in like the best way. I love the writing. I love the journey. I loved all of it. I loved just everything that she did with it. I really can't talk about this book because I really want people to go into it blind. Basically, the beginning of the book starts out with a female character. She is going to what I would consider a port. She's in the army of her kingdom. That's like she like lives on an island, but it's like a floating man-made island that they were like exiled. You find that out. So they're going to this port where they can like trade things, and only certain soldiers go there once a year. And she goes, and basically she incites a war between kingdoms because she is caught stealing something, even though she wasn't stealing something. Someone accuses her of it, and all hell breaks loose. And then she goes back to her kingdom with all the soldiers, and the other kingdom follows her. And that's when things just spirals. It just spirals, and I really enjoyed it. I don't have anything else to say other than that I enjoyed it so freaking much. I do have a lot of romances, but one that I read this year that I absolutely loved, I was going back and forth on which one I wanted to put, but it's Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. So I go back and forth for my favorite in the series so far is this one and Delicate Escape, and I was gonna choose Delicate Escape, but when I think about the characters, I really loved the back and forth of the characters in this book. So it is definitely rivals, not really rivals, they just don't like each other. It's kind of like enemies to lovers, but she is his best friend's little sister. It's his foster sister, and she comes back to town to, like, you know, redo her parents' house that was burned down when she was younger, and that's where like the suspense plot kind of takes off because someone's after her because of that. And he is like an ex-profiler for the FBI. He's so grumpy. It's just, it makes for a good combination. The banter was so amazing, and I loved it. Like, I really loved this book. I love the romance, I love the character growth, I love this book so much. And I wanted to mention it because now you can walk into Barnes & Noble and buy it, which I think is really freaking cool. Another book that I read this year is Stealing for Keeps by Rebecca Jinchak. So this is her first YA novel, and I say YA, it's just a high school romance, and this actually comes out on the 31st, so you can go pick it up at Barnes & Noble tomorrow if you're watching this video on Monday. Now, I love this because, like, sometimes with YA romances, they can be cliche, right? But this one just had me giggling and kicking my feet. Like, it brought me back to those high school feelings of, like, falling in love for the first time and having a crush and worrying about what your friends are gonna think and this and that and the drama that goes along with it, and oh, she said this and he said that and blah blah blah. Like, it was such a good romance. Our female character, she's actually healing from an ice skating injury, and you see that she won't be able to ice skate anymore. So I find it very interesting that she put that in there with like a female character who's just really struggling, trying to find out what she's gonna do with her life when she wanted to be a professional figure skater. And then you have the new guy in school. He comes into the school and he just kind of like rocks everything. He rocks the friends groups, he rocks the soccer team, which is why he moved to this school specifically, because they have a really good soccer program. And he starts liking our female character, and he's dared to kiss her at a party, okay? Which is not all that, like, you know, uncommon. It's cute. Oh my gosh, super adorable. I get to kiss my crush because he's crushing on her. He doesn't know that she's his teammate's ex-girlfriend. And I say teammate as in like the captain of the soccer team, his captain's ex-girlfriend. The drama is drama-ing, okay? Like, it was, I just loved it so much. He is so adorable. He is such a golden retriever hero too that's just like trying to help her. Literally one of my favorite reads. Just had me giggling and kicking my feet. I just loved it. I think Rebecca hit it out of the park with this book, so I definitely want people to pick it up when it comes out. Most people will be reading it in 2025, but it is one of my favorite books of 2024 because I read it early on in December and I loved it. Now, another one of my favorite authors is Elsie Silver, and I picked Wild Eyes by her. She had Wild Love that came out, and I love that book, gave it 5 stars, but comparatively, I like, what is the word, connected with the female character in this book more than I did Wild Love, just because she's really struggling. This is an emotional book. If you could listen to the audiobook, I need people to listen to the audiobook. It was absolutely amazing. She had a professional singer that came and performed songs because our female character in this book is a singer-songwriter, and she goes to Rose Hill to kind of like find herself again and figure things out. It was so good, so emotional. I was tearing up at the end. Just like finding who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go is just, it just hit for me. Any woman who reads this, I feel like, can get something out of it. And I really connected with our female character. I loved her. I thought she was absolutely amazing. So more people need to read this book. It came out a little bit later in the year, but I promise you, you're not gonna be disappointed. This book was so good. One of my favorites by her. Another book that I was just emotionally taken by, like literally taken by, was The Deepest End of Love by Lucina Connie. So this is the 3rd book in this series. You can technically read them out of order, but if you want the most in the series, because all of the characters are like intertwined, like the 1st book is of this character, our female character in this book, her parents, and then you have the brother in the 1st book, his sister gets the second book, and then their daughter gets this book. So it's all like weaved together with their family ties and stuff like that. But this was so good. It's angsty and pining, and he's obsessed with her. There's an age gap. He's her professor, but like in an internship way. Like she has an internship, and it happens to be at the place that he works, so it's a little bit forbidden in that way. She actually is trying to figure out if this is like the right path for her career, what she's doing, and she's struggling with things with therapy. Like this whole book evolves and surrounds therapy a lot, so just know that going in. But this is such a beautiful book, and I've read all of the books by Lucina Connie this year. She is one of my favorite new to me authors, and I will read everything that she comes out with, but each book got better and better and better with the writing and the character development, all of it. So yeah, the third book was my favorite, and I just absolutely devoured it. Another fantasy that I read this year was Fear the Flames. So technically I read the indie version, the first book of the year. It was my first 5-star of 2024, and then I reread the traditionally published book when it came out at the end of the year. And there definitely has some changes in the book. This one takes out a lot of like the filler from the indie book of like just them like going through the forest and traveling and stuff like that, which I love because I'm a fan of the characters, but it doesn't take away from the book. Like reading this, I tabbed it. It's still an amazing book. If you were looking for a fantasy romance with anxiety rep, like a mental health rep, and particular anxiety, our female character, she is literally leading this like hidden kingdom to get back her dragons from her original kingdom where her father still rules. Her father is horrible, and so she's trying to get that back, but she knows that she has to ally with a different kingdom, and that's when she meets our hero. He is the captain of the guard. They are so equal, and even though she is like this woman who's leading this kingdom, like she's basically their queen and leading like the armies and stuff like that, she deals with anxiety and she struggles with certain things, and you see how she overcomes that, and it doesn't make her weak in any way. And I love that. I love the kind of like the message behind it. So this does end on a major cliffhanger. Like the dragons are in here. It's mostly towards the end of the book. It's a big cliffhanger part of it. So that's, I think the next book is going to have more dragons in it, which I'm very excited for because it comes out in 2025. So excited. But yeah, this was such a good book. I really loved it. I don't know, I just read it and I connected with our female character. I was like, yes girl, you can be strong even though you have anxiety. It doesn't make you weak. You just gotta work on how you deal with that anxiety, and I loved it. Second to last book I want to talk about is Girls of Flight City by Lorraine Heath. I told you there was another Lorraine Heath book on here. I loved this book. So Lorraine Heath is a, like I said, historical romance author. So this book has a decent romance subplot, but I just connected. I love the story of our female character, how she owns this airfield and it gets sold away and it's taken over by the US government, and you see how all of these British soldiers during World War II come to train on this. It's like in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and you see that she is like really seeing like the inside of the war from their eyes of what they're about to go into, and it's really hard. You see that her sister is also doing things. You see that her brother goes off to war before actually the US enters the war, which is a big no-no. I loved it. I just love the ride of this book, and it's one of my favorites by her. Like I still think about this book after reading it. And my top book of the year, which I guess is not a surprise but may come as a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me. That is The Women by Kristen Hanna. So I know Kristen Hanna has a big fan base, okay? This is my first ever Kristen Hanna book. I listened to the audiobook. I was driving home from like a little weekend getaway with my friend Jess, and I was like, you know what? I hadn't read it. I have the I had the ALC through NetGalley of this, so let me go ahead and listen to it, okay? I was so blown away by this book. Like I saw a TikTok like just last week about this book of someone reading it and quoting it, and I was like, gets me every time. So this book spans years and years and years during the Vietnam War, and the Vietnam War was a hard one. Like the US entered it and it was tough for them. Now, a lot of things were being told to the American public that was like, oh, we're doing great in Vietnam, everything's great, everything's fantastic. It was not great and it was not fantastic. And our female character, you see that her brother goes to war and enlists and stuff like that because her whole family, all the men have had like some time in the war, like they've been a war hero in some type of way. And so her brother is part of that. And she's like, I want to do something. I don't want to be a housewife. Like my mom just sits around and does stuff. I want to do something. So she goes from like the army to the navy and all of this stuff like that to try and enlist, and she chose, I forgot which branch of the military she chose, but it had the shortest training time. So basically she is dropped into Vietnam as a brand new nurse, and you see that she is just blown away by the gore and the horror that's happening over there, and it is real. It is raw, it is real, it is hard to read at times. But then most of this book I thought was going to be in war, like during the wartime. Now you see how she still struggles when she comes home. When she comes home, you think, oh, they're gonna get, you know, all this help, like they have a lot of PTSD, what we now know as PTSD and stuff like that, and you see that she's struggling a lot, like mentally she's struggling with coming home, and, you know, just that change of like being in that constant like fight or flight mode, coming home and dealing with that and like trying to live what is a normal life. And you see that she goes to the VA and she was like, hey, I was a nurse, I was in the war. And they were like, women didn't serve in the war. And she's like, what? I was there. And so basically she's told, oh, you're not really struggling, it's just like your menstrual cycle, it's just like your hormones are off balance. And she's like, no, I'm trying to get help, like mentally I'm not okay, like I am not okay. And it also shows how you can have relationships during that wartime that mean something and or don't mean something. I don't want to give anything away, but you see how like in that time of need you still crave that human connection no matter who it's with, and it's just heartbreaking to read. I cannot with this book. I cannot talk about this book because all it makes me want to do is just drop everything and read this book again. It is so beautiful. Like, my friend Jess read this and she was sobbing at the end of this book, and she's like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like the end of Manacled. If you know, you know. If you don't, go read Manacled. It's a fanfic. I don't know if you can actually download it now, but if you've read Manacled, you know that was one of my favorite books of 2023. But like reading Manacled and like the ending of that book, it's just like you just want to scream. Like, it's not fair. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair what women have to deal with. Like, once again, feminine rage is this, okay? It's about the women of Vietnam War, but it's told through like one perspective of one woman. So I just found it interesting and amazing and beautiful, and she's an amazing writer, and I cannot wait to read more from her. But I talked about that book for a lot longer than I thought, but those were my top books of 2024. 2024 has been an amazing reading year. I traveled, I worked a lot, I read a lot of good books, I met a lot of new friends, and I've like grown on my channel of like what I'm comfortable doing with videos, and I cannot wait to see what 2025 has in store for me. I cannot wait to spend 2025 with you and read all the books with you and vlog everything and just read more from different genres and subgenres. So if you've made it this far and you want to let me know, leave me a candle emoji, like the candle. I don't know why, that's what came to mind. Leave me a candle emoji in the comments down below. Also, let me know what your favorite read of 2024 was. I would love to know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life and whatever that means to you. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.